Dave Grohl's admiration for the greats of rock is no secret. Over decades of music making, the former Nirvana drummer and Foo Fighters frontman has curated a love letter to the genre's finest, openly celebrating their contributions and unapologetically borrowing their spirit for his own work.
It's one of the things that I love about the albums that you can listen to front to back. Like when you listen to a Zeppelin record, you know, most of them kind of go up and down, and they show the range of dynamic within the band. Like those are the bands that I like the most.
But for Grohl, few musicians stand taller than Led Zeppelin's enigmatic Jimmy Page, a guitarist whose influence is etched into the DNA of modern music and whose approach to his craft remains, in Grohl's words, freakier than Jimi Hendrix. To understand why Page occupies such a singular place in Grohl's heart, you have to look beyond the music itself. Yes, the blistering solos, labyrinthine riffs, and staggering innovation are all part of the allure, but for Grohl, it's Page's humanity that elevates him to deity status.
Anything wrong? What are you going to do when you leave school? Take up skiffle?
No, I want to do biological research.
He plays the guitar like an old bluesman on acid, Grohl once said, a characteristically colourful summation of the way Page channels deep emotion through the 6 strings of his guitar. It's a style that's wild yet calculated, messy yet impossibly precise, qualities Grohl seems to value above all else. But let's start at the beginning, with Grohl's own musical education.
Because I have been so obsessed with Zeppelin since I was whatever, a kid.
His career has been one of reinvention, from the ferocious drumming that propelled Nirvana into the stratosphere to his evolution as Foo Fighters frontman and primary songwriter. That shift brought with it a closer relationship with the guitar, transforming Grohl's appreciation for players like Page from fanboy admiration to a deeply personal connection. When I listen to Zeppelin bootlegs, his solos can make me laugh, or they can make me tear up, Grohl explains. Any live version of Since I've Been Loving You will bring you to tears and fill you with joy all at once. This duality, joy and sorrow, chaos and order, is what Grohl seems to prize most in Page's artistry. Led Zeppelin, after all, weren't just a rock band, they were an emotional wrecking ball. For Grohl, their music provided a great escape from a lot of things, a sanctuary where experimentalism reigned and convention was ignored. They were never critically acclaimed in their day because they were too experimental and they were too fringe, Grohl observes, noting the irony of how history has transformed them into legends. In 1968 and 69, there was some freaky shit going on, but Zeppelin were the freakiest. Of course, Page wasn't the only member of Led Zeppelin who left an indelible mark on Grohl. His admiration for drummer John Bonham borders on worship. Grohl has frequently called Bonham the greatest rock drummer of all time, describing his playing as directly from the heart and lauding his ability to swing, groove and explode with primal intensity. Bonham played with such manic cacophony, but also had the ultimate feel, Grohl once explained. He could swing, he could get on top, or he could pull back. But even with his lifelong obsession with Bonham's drumming, it's Page who seems to strike a deeper chord with Grohl. For Grohl, Page represents a kind of untouchable artistry, an alchemy of technical brilliance and emotional rawness that few can replicate. Hendrix was a genius on fire, whereas Page was a genius possessed, Grohl says, drawing a distinction between two of the most celebrated guitarists in history. Hendrix dazzled with his virtuosic flourishes and unbridled energy, but Page's playing carried a deeper sense of purpose, as though every note was imbued with some elemental force. Grohl isn't alone in his assessment.
Jimmy Page is one of the best guitar players I've ever known.
Certainly Jimmy Page was the biggest influence on me. I loved his playing, and I loved everything that he represented, his look, his style of playing, the looseness in his playing. I really learned an awful lot from him, probably more than anyone else.
And Page arguably is the toughest to kind of copy the sound. I mean, again, a tribute guitar player, but he had these kind of wacky slurs and things that he would do, and it's, you know, in some circles it is argued that he was not a very accurate player. I disagree. He's intrinsically very consistent, so that's not a question of accuracy, that's just how he plays. And it's one of the hardest things to do is copy those idiosyncrasies in his playing.
Page has long been regarded as a visionary, someone who pushed the boundaries of what the guitar could do, both in the studio and on stage. His work with Led Zeppelin redefined rock music, fusing blues, folk and psychedelia into a sound that was at once epic and deeply personal. And yet, for all his technical skill, it's Page's imperfections that Grohl finds most compelling. His solos can make you laugh, or they can make you tear up, Grohl says. He doesn't just use his guitar as an instrument. For him, it's like some sort of emotional translator. That idea of emotional translation is key to understanding Grohl's own music. From the raw vulnerability of Nirvana's Unplugged in New York to the anthemic catharsis of Foo Fighters' Everlong, Grohl has built a career on the belief that music should move people, not just impress them. It's a philosophy he seems to have borrowed directly from Page, whose live performances with Zeppelin were nothing short of seismic. Zeppelin concerts and albums were like exorcisms for them, Grohl explains. People had their asses blown out by Hendrix and Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton, but Page took it to a whole new level. For Grohl, this sense of pushing boundaries is what makes Page not just a great guitarist, but an essential one. Heavy metal would not exist without Led Zeppelin, and if it did, it would suck, Grohl once remarked, a statement that captures both his admiration for the band and his disdain for mediocrity. Page's playing, with its mix of bluesy grit and otherworldly inventiveness, set a template that countless musicians have tried, and often failed, to emulate. But while many have borrowed from Page's playbook, few have captured the intangible magic that makes his work so enduring. That magic is perhaps most evident in Zeppelin's live performances, which Grohl describes as transformative experiences. Whether unleashing fiery solos on Dazed and Confused, or weaving delicate textures on acoustic numbers like the Rain Song, Page had a way of commanding attention without overshadowing the music itself. It's a skill Grohl has tried to incorporate into his own performances, balancing his larger-than-life persona with a genuine love for the craft. Page was fearless, Grohl says, highlighting the guitarist's willingness to take risks and embrace imperfections. He played right on the edge of falling apart. It's worth noting that Grohl's appreciation for Page isn't rooted in nostalgia or blind hero worship. He's quick to acknowledge the flaws and contradictions that make Page's work so compelling. But for Grohl, those imperfections are what elevate Page from a skilled musician to an artist of the highest order. When I listen to him, I don't just hear guitar playing, Grohl explains. I hear something deeper, something more human. In many ways, Grohl's relationship with Page mirrors his broader approach to music. Both men share a belief in the transformative power of sound, the idea that music should challenge, inspire, and connect people on a fundamental level. It's a philosophy that has guided Grohl from his earliest days in the Washington, D.C. punk scene to his current status as one of rock's most enduring icons. And while Grohl has carved out his own unique space in the music world, he remains unapologetically devoted to the artists who paved the way. Ultimately, Grohl's admiration for Page isn't just about the music. It's about the spirit of creativity, the willingness to take risks, and the unshakable belief in the power of imperfection. Page doesn't just play the guitar, Grohl says. He pours his soul into it. For a man whose own career has been defined by passion and authenticity, it's easy to see why Page stands as his greatest inspiration. In a world where precision often trumps emotion and perfection is prized above all else, Grohl's celebration of Page feels refreshingly defiant. It's a reminder that the best music isn't always flawless. It's human, messy, and profoundly moving. And for Grohl, that's what makes Page not just a guitarist, but a kindred spirit, a fellow traveler on the wild and wonderful journey of rock and roll.